Pretrial hearing of the four defendants who are accused of being the planners and logistical facilitators of the planes operation, also known as the 9/11 attacks. This article came out last week from the New York Times, in which Carol Rosenberg is covering the story quite closely. This article is from New York Times, as you can see, February 29th. CIA violently cuts off 9/11 suspect when he tried to talk about attacks. And so what this article is going to refer to is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, in which he was captured in 2003 and rendered to CIA custody throughout these black sites, and then off to Guantanamo Bay, I think in 2006 or 2005, in which he was talking about the 9/11 attacks. And let's see what the article has to say. And also, we're going to be reading a small part from the Senate Select Committee report on torture from the CIA, and we're going to talk. I'm going to show you a little excerpt on that report regarding Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's torture, specifically the use of waterboard. In the first month in U.S. custody, the man accused of planning the 9/11 attacks, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, confessed to the crime during questioning and wanted to keep talking about it, according to the psychologist who interrogated him. Now, the psychologists who were in charge of the SEER program, as it was called, or also known as enhanced interrogation techniques, a fancy word for torture, Dr. James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen, right? But the CIA wanted him to discuss al-Qaeda's future plans, not the attacks that had horrified America a year and a half earlier, said Dr. James Mitchell, the psychologist. So when the prisoner, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, mentioned 9/11, they would slam him naked into a wall. Why? It's not like the CIA knows the intricate details of the 9/11 attacks. Why would they want Khalid Sheikh Mohammed not to talk about it? Because according to the CIA's own Inspector General report, the CIA wanted to talk about imminent attacks inside the United States. Funny thing is that the CIA allowed for these al-Qaeda members to come inside the United States, like Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, knowing they were al-Qaeda, knowing they were coming from a high-level al-Qaeda meeting in Malaysia. The NSA also knew. It was the NSA who told the CIA about these two, because they were listening to the satellite phone calls of bin Laden in the early 90s and an al-Qaeda communications hub in Yemen. Knew about the arrival of al-Mihdhar and al-Hazmi. CIA began tracking them, along with Saudi intelligence. This came out through the Canestraro document last year. It's no longer speculation, it's a fact. So if they were worried about attacks inside the United States, why would they let two al-Qaeda members enter the United States without telling the Department of Justice, who could have start monitoring these people? So they're worried about attacks now, where it's much too late? Something doesn't fit here. It was March 2003. That month, interrogators would waterboard Mohammed 183 times at a secret overseas CIA prison in a mistaken belief, Mitchell said, that a nuclear attack in the United States was imminent. Now, if we are to believe Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Ramzi bin al-Sheikh, now remember, they were interviewed by Al Jazeera before they were captured and tortured. They confessed to their complicity in the 9/11 attacks. Okay. If that's true, remember, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed originally wanted 10 planes to crash all over intercontinental United States, and one of them being a nuclear facility, in which, according, I take with a grain of salt now, bin Laden said, no, we don't have that many people, and nuclear facilities are off because it would mean it would just go too crazy. I don't know what that means. That didn't make sense. Isn't that what bin Laden wanted? To cause as much havoc and destruction as possible? That would do it. That didn't sit right with me all these years, because I heard that before. But Mohammed still was not saying what his captor wanted to hear. We walled him, Mitchell said Monday, explaining that he and his colleagues had rammed their prisoner backward into a wall to punish him because they feared he was talking about 9/11 to distract them from another looming crime. If that's the case, that would be the fault of the CIA anyway, because they knew that al-Qaida was inside the United States and didn't tell the FBI, even at this point. And they still lied about it during the 9/11 Commission and the Joint House Inquiry. They lied about it. Okay. Yet they still got promotions. George Tenet, the director of the CIA, got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Tom Wilshire, the deputy director of the Bin Laden Issue Station, Cody Malik Station, retired. Cofer Black, the head of the Counterterrorism Center. None of these people were fired. None of them were laid off or reprimanded, or even docked pay, right? Nothing. And then, for their failures of 9/11, they went and conducted the rendition and torture of many hundreds of people. Most of them were innocent. You know, this testimony that's given here this is week 4 of the pretrial hearings. Now, 9/11 trial hasn't started yet, okay? If it ever will. Used to be 5 defendants, now it's 4. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Amr al-Baluchi, Mustafa al-Sawi, and Tawfiq bin Attash, also known as Khalid. Ramzi bin al-Shib was declared incompetent, mentally unfit. You don't think the other 4 are? The idea that Mohammed was punished for talking about that topic in his first month of U.S. detention is new to the proceedings. Of course it is. Mitchell has been testifying in pretrial hearings in the death penalty cases at Guantanamo Bay since 2020 and never mentioned it before. Because this looks bad on the CIA. Again, why would they not want the alleged plotter of the 9/11 attacks to talk about how he plotted the 9/11 attacks? Why would they torture him for that? Because they wanted information that the CIA Counterterrorism Center wanted, which was imminent attacks inside the United States? But it aligns with a prosecution argument that the CIA was not seeking confessions for a future trial when it brutally interrogated captives who were held incommunicado in the secret prisons known as black sites from 2002 until they were transferred to Guantanamo in 2006. And like I said before in many previous videos, even if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was indeed the mastermind who plotted the 9/11 attacks, even if he is really indeed the mastermind, how could we believe it? Because he was tortured. That we can never know for sure, even now, while he's in Guantanamo, even if he was freed, if that was a possibility. How can anyone believe him? It's about knowing, as something that I have stated ad nauseum. I don't deal in belief. I try to attain knowledge. As little as I have regarding this subject. Very little. It can be attained by putting the pieces together. It's meticulous. Yes. It's painstakingly detailed and takes a lot of time. But you can attain it. You just have to leave the preconceived biases and irrational speculations to the side. Look at it like a crime scene investigator would, you know. But I digress. As Mitchell said, the prosecution tells it the agency was seeking actionable intelligence that could be used for a military agency mission, not a prosecution, because the CIA is not into legalities. They're not looking for a trial. They're looking for actionable intelligence in which the Special Activities Division or the Special Forces could use. So they could play cop overseas, not inside the United States. Remember, they can't do nothing here. They're not a legal organization, not like the FBI. CIA can't make arrests, prosecute them. That's Department of Justice. And it's not like they're sharing information with the FBI at this point. They withheld it. And because they withheld information, 9/11, could have been prevented. All this nonsense that we saw many years later, the many millions that have been killed in these wars in the Middle East could have been prevented. When you look at the ramifications, the ripple effect of 9/11, it's still felt today. Warrantless wiretapping of Americans around the world, surveillance all around the United States, around the world. Cameras are everywhere, recording your every movement, knowing where you're going everywhere at every second of the day. That's what 9/11 ushered in. That's why I take a great interest in it, because it's unlike any event in human history. Not like World War II, not like the Revolutionary War, not like the assassination of JFK. This is different. It ushered in a new world, a world that is shaping to be bleak without any privacy, because agencies like the CIA and the NSA now want to know what you know, because you're the enemy, or you could be a prospective enemy. Government considers the distinction between interrogating to gather intelligence rather than to build a case to be important. In 2007, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed again bragged about his role in the attacks when he was brought before FBI agents at Guantanamo Bay, according to prosecutors. They want to use that confession to clean teams that did not use or threaten violence as key trial evidence. It will be up to the military judge to decide whether the 2007 confession was voluntary. The judge also must decide whether earlier statements obtained from Mohammed through torture informed the FBI interrogators, which could make the confession inadmissible. This is why the trial has not started. You could thank the CIA for this. Piece of shit, immoral agencies that they are. Mitchell testified that Mohammed had been questioned up to 3 times a day, almost daily, for 3 years in the CIA prison network before his transfer to Guantanamo. The questions arrived in classified cables from CIA headquarters, but some questions originally came from FBI agents and analysts who were building an eventual case for prosecution, according to government documents and pre-trial testimony. According to the FBI, we had no part in the torture. They physically didn't, but knew it was happening and passed off their questions to the CIA because the CIA asked them, hey, you guys are more experienced when it comes to counterterrorism, especially the New York field office. So they got Ali Soufan and others to basically assist them, knowing that these guys were getting tortured. So the FBI, wasn't truthful about that. Mitchell's testimony also put a spotlight on the use of walling in the black sites. If done right, he said, should not cause any permanent damage. Imagine saying this. You fucking wall you. Let me, dress you down to your bare skin, put a towel around your neck, which is what they did, wrap a knot on it, and then start using the other end of the towel to forcibly move Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and wall him. What if I did that to James Mitchell? The enhanced interrogation technique was designed for an Air Force program that trained American pilots to resist enemy interrogations. Then a trainee faced a mock interrogator who slammed his shoulder blades, not his head, into a wall made of plywood and burlap to disorient him. The CIA prisoners experienced it differently. They have said their heads were slammed against concrete walls. Their lawyers blame walling for brain injuries that have been detected in some detainees. Those being walled were seen as the enemy. Terrorism suspects who were held naked, hooded, and systematically deprived of sleep. They were being conditioned, Mitchell's wording, to give up al-Qaeda secrets about sleeper cells, future plots, and how to find Osama bin Laden. In 2020, Mitchell testified that these interrogators took turns walling Mohammed so that he could not become tired and made a mistake. Mitchell wrote in his 2016 memoirs that he and his team used walling in combination with sleep deprivation as part of a gradual conditioning process. After, in Mitchell's assessment, waterboarding failed to elicit the desired response from Mohammed. One of the interrogated partners, Dr. Bruce Jessen, put a rolled up towel that was held together with duct tape around the naked prisoner's neck and pulled him forward. Mohammed refused to help us stop operators inside the United States, he wrote, so Jessen bounces him off the wall several times. Now, how does he know that? Well, he got that information from other tortured detainees. You don't know if it's true or not. You're going on information that basically is fabricated, acting like it's factual information, torturing the next person who's implicated in that fabrication and trying to elicit information from him, which is basically fabricated. So it's a reciprocating problem, right? Reciprocating fabrications. You're chasing one person involved in a fabrication, involved with another fabrication, involves another person in which you're torturing him, which elicits a fabrication information, and it goes on and on and on. That's why it lasted for 3 years. In 2022, Jessen testified in a different case that a towel was needed because the prisoner was at most wearing a diaper. There was no way to grab a hold of him. Mitchell has described the rolled up towel as both a safety collar and a tool to condition prisoners. After the brutality ended, he said interrogated could just bring a towel to a debriefing session to remind a prisoner of the hard times code in the black sites for brutal interrogation. So in other words, even after interrogations have stopped, all you have to do is come a couple of years later, bring in a towel, and that prisoner is reminded of, well, hey, we're going to start walling you if you, change your mind about maybe your participation in the attacks. Because Khalid Sheikh Mohammed retracted everything he said. In time, Mitchell said the prisoners were so cooperative that the towel was no longer needed. That's how conditioning works. An abusive victim is going to acquiesce so that the pain could stop. In other accounts of the CIA's reward and punishment system, interrogators sometimes gave a naked prisoner who cooperated a towel to cover his genitals during questioning. Oh, how nice. Mitchell said that the walling and waterboarding ended a month into Mohammed's detention, but that he continued answering questions for his next 1,250 days in black sites where prisoners only had contact with CIA staff. Prisoners deemed less cooperative got a maintenance visit from Mitchell or Jessen, who reminded them that displeasing Washington could result in more enhanced interrogations, although that never happened, he said. Instead, amenities, including mattresses, clothing, and Qurans, could be given or taken away. In time, Mitchell said Mohammed's conditioning to be afraid if he did not respond to questions diminished, and he answered questions to keep amenities or get new ones. Despite Mitchell's testimony about institutional disinterest, somebody in the black sites captured what Mohammed had said about the 9/11 attacks. This week, Mohammed's defense lawyers showed the judge CIA cables from March 2003 with information about the plot that was attributed to Mohammed and that had been circulated in the intelligence community, including to the FBI. Right? Now, what I'm going to read next is from the Senate Select Committee report on torture that was released in 2014, I think. Don't quote me on the year. I always tend to forget. But, I'll disappear here for a second. The CIA waterboards Khalid Sheikh Mohammed at least 183 times. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's reporting includes significant fabricated information. This is 2014. Okay. Before the pretrial hearings even got underway. That the Senate Select Committee knew that by torturing Khalid Sheikh Mohammed using the waterboard, he fabricated information. On March 10, 2003, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was subjected to the first of his 15 separate waterboarding sessions. The first waterboarding session, which lasted 30 minutes, 10 more than anticipated in the Office of Legal Counsel's August 1st, 2002 opinion, was followed by the use of a horizontal stress position that had not previously been approved by CIA headquarters. So in other words, even CIA personnel, contractors, Bruce Jessen and James Mitchell, who went by the code names Swigert and Dunbar in the Senate report to hide their identities, right? They went against CIA headquarters and used torture techniques that was not approved even by CIA headquarters. So the CIA's own contractors were violating CIA headquarters legal opinions about what to use. The chief of base, worried about the legal implications, prohibited the on-site medical officer from reporting on the interrogation directly to Office of Medical Service outside or official CIA cable traffic. On March 12, 2003, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed provided information on the Heathrow Airport and Canary Wharf plotting. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed stated that he showed a sketch in his notebook of a building in Canary Wharf, a major business district in London, to Amr al-Baluchi. He also provided statements about directing prospective pilots to study at flight schools and stated that Jafar al-Tayyar was involved in the Heathrow plot. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed retracted all of this information later in his detention. There are no CIA records indicating that these and other retractions were assessed to be false because these plots were actually true. These were the plots that were true. The March 12, 2003 reporting from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed on the Heathrow airport plotting was deemed at the time by CIA interrogators to be an effort by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to avoid discussion of plotting inside the United States and thus contributed to the decision to subject Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to 2 waterboarding sessions that day. That's what they assumed. There may not have been another attack inside the United States after 9/11. Very so inside the United States in the 1990s when it was proposed to bin Laden in 1996 about the plane's operation, which came from Bajinka plot. But as you could see from the article, they tortured Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. We're talking about 9/11. Why would they do that? They don't have information. No, they don't, unless they know something we don't know. That very well could be the case. CIA records state that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's abdomen was somewhat distended, and he expressed water when the abdomen was pressed because it was so filled with fucking water. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's gastric contents was so diluted by water that the medical officer present was not concerned about regurgitated gastric acid damaging Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's esophagus. The officer was, however, concerned about water intoxication and dilution of electrolytes and requested that the interrogators use saline in future waterboarding sessions. Right? On March 13, 2003, after Khalid Sheikh Mohammed again denied that al-Qaida had operations planned for inside the United States because the 9/11 attacks are over with, there was no follow-up. CIA interrogators decided on a day of intensive waterboarding sessions during the first of the 3 waterboarding sessions that the interrogators responded to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's efforts to breathe during the sessions by holding Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's lips and directing the water in his mouth. According to a cable from the detention site, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed would begin signaling by pointing upward with his 2 index fingers as the water poured approached the established time limit. The cable noted that this behavior indicates that the subject remains alert and has become familiar with key aspects of the process. CIA records state that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed yelled and twisted when he was secured to the waterboard for the second session of the day, but appeared resigned to tolerating the board and stated he had nothing new to say about terrorist plots inside the United States. Prior to the 3rd waterboard session of the calendar day, the on-site medical officer raised concerns that the waterboard session, which would be the 4th in 14 hours, would exceed the limits included in the draft OMS guidelines that had been distributed the previous afternoon. Those draft guidelines stated that up to 3 waterboard sessions in a 24-hour period was acceptable. At the time, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had been subjected to more than 65 applications of water during the 4 waterboarding sessions between the afternoon of March 12, 2003 and the morning of March 13, 2003. In response to a request for approval from the chief of base, CTC attorney redaction assured detention site personnel that the medical officer is incorrect, that these guidelines have been approved and are fully coordinated, which is a lie. It was not approved by CIA headquarters. Redaction sent an email to the detention site authorizing the additional waterboarding session, despite indications from redaction that the detention site personnel would receive a formal authorizing cable in which no such authorization from CIA headquarters was provided. Like I said, all this was basically not approved. That they took it, Bruce Jessen and James Mitchell took it upon themselves to act on these illegalities, as I would call them, against CIA headquarters' wishes. At the end of the day, the medical officer wrote, redaction, OMS, that things are slowly evolving from OMS being viewed as the institutional conscience and the limiting factor to the ones who are dedicated to maximizing the benefit in a safe manner and keeping everyone's butt out of trouble. Because it's all about washing your ass, right? I don't want to get in trouble for this. The medical officer noted that his communication with redaction OMS was no longer viewed with suspicion. On the afternoon of March 13, 2003, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was subjected to his third waterboard session of that calendar day and 25 hours. CIA records note that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed vomited during and after this procedure. And this will be it for here, because I'm going to read, that's all you really need to see, right? Get rid of this. Shortly thereafter, CIA headquarters began reevaluating the use of the waterboard interrogation techniques. According to a March 14, 2003 email from an interrogator who was not a detention site blue, but was reviewing cable traffic, the overall view seems to be that the waterboard is not working in gaining Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's compliance. The deputy chief of the CIA's interrogation program responded in agreement, adding that against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, it has proven ineffective, that the potential for physical harm is far greater with the waterboard than with other techniques, bringing into question the issue of risk versus gain. The deputy chief further suggested that the waterboard was counterproductive, stating that we seem to have lost ground with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed since progress made at the detention site Cobalt, and as a result, the CIA should consider the possibility that the introduction of the waterboard interrogation technique may poison the well. The email in which these sentiments were expressed was sent to redaction, the CTC attorney overseeing the interrogation of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Despite these reservations and assessments, the waterboarding of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed continued for another 10 days because why the fuck not, right? You might as well go all the way instead of halfway in. And that's the problem with the CIA. They don't give a shit about long-term ramifications. They must have not thought that, hey, torture elicits false confessions. Of course they fucking know, because they're the fucking masters at it in the United States. And that's why you had the church hearings in 1977. Thanks to the CIA, now we don't even have a trial, even 23 years after the attacks. Nothing. And these pretrial hearings are not, evidence that we may have a trial in the future. Because who knows? If Ramzi bin Rashid was deemed medically ineffective to stand trial, what's stopping for the other four to be mentally declared unfit for trial? And if that's the case, then the prosecutors can make an ugly decision that would seem unconscionable in the public view. Either they are held in detention for the rest of their lives without charge, or released back to their home countries. And then you're left with nothing. Okay, guys, that's the end of this video. Any more update videos about 9/11, of course, you'll get without bias.